Hey you guys, it's Peter, and welcome to my channel, Peterisms, where I tell stories of my life and just little things that I've learned as I've grown into the person that I am today. And I thought I would do a little soulful Sunday meditation reading over here. I actually went to my sponsor's house last night and hung out. We sat outside for like 6 hours, and she had a fire pit going, and she made like a little cheese board, and it was so nice. And we talked about all kinds of things, but at one point we were talking about like the importance of spiritual growth for us as people in recovery. But then we talked about the importance of meditation, and she was really sharing with me kind of like her journey with that and her story, and what she was like encouraging me to do. And a lot of it was things that I had done already, but I've kind of gotten away from a little bit. And much of that was just sitting in silence, And I think that we often have this kind of misunderstanding about actually what meditation is, that it's this getting to another level kind of thing, or really, I don't know, like this deep spiritual experience, when actually, it is really just deep thinking. And so we were talking, and she said, whenever I'm going through something, she was like, I'll just like consciously talk to God. And she said, and then, I'll just sit outside, by myself, just in total silence, nothing else. I mean, how many times have I talked about that over here, but I've kind of gotten away from that. And, I think especially like having been in some pain recently, like physical pain, it wouldn't be bad for me just to sit and like meditate on gratitude, of all of the things that I have in my life, and all of the things that, that I'm grateful for, from, a house to, live in, to food to eat that keeps me alive, to water to drink, to my husband, to my family, to my dogs, to my friends, and money to pay for bills. It just goes on and on and on, right? But like to just meditate on that for a while. It's interesting because I've talked to a lot of people through the years about gratitude lists. It's something that, we do in sobriety. I think it was one of the very first things I was ever encouraged to do, actually, in treatment and by a sponsor, was to make a gratitude list. And actually, in early sobriety, I was encouraged to make a gratitude list of those things that if I started using again, I would lose. And I can remember I kept it in my pocket for a while. Now, I know some people that have kept those lists in their pockets for like their first year or two of recovery. And anytime they're going through a craving, they pick it up and they like look through the list of all these things that they'll lose, And I know that today. And interestingly enough, like I know in my head just what I'm going to lose. And interestingly enough, I think last week, if you watched my video that I posted on my Peter Monn channel about like where I've been or whatever, and I got very emotional talking about my fear of getting hooked on pain medication. I think it's not just about like, oh, I'll get hooked on pain medication and then I'll be like all these people I know. I think it's also that I have had this tape written in my head for so long of what that relapse will look like, And it changes through the years when new things are added. Like, I mean, I didn't know my husband 15 years ago, so my tape looked different then than it does now. But he's definitely part of my tape today, And I look at being able to, provide for myself and have a life beyond my wildest dreams. That would all be gone, It would look like this with me using right away. Well, first of all, if I got hooked on it, I can tell you my desire to continue to fake any kind of sobriety would be gone like that. So I would probably be drinking and using, smoking pot and doing everything else that I wanted to do like within minutes of being hooked. You know what I mean? Because once that was away, it'd be gone. I can remember like people always ask me like, you couldn't go into a bar and have a drink? And I'm like, oh, I believe firmly, now I want you to hear what I'm really saying because people misunderstand this sometimes. I believe that I could go into a bar and I could sit down and I could have a drink and I could walk out, right? But I don't know, so that's why I don't do it. But I think I probably could. Like I could probably go into a bar and order a beer and I could probably drink it and walk out and be like, done, right? But this is the problem, is that it's a mental obsession. So it's not about the drink and walking away. It's about the first sip of alcohol that hits my tongue. At that point, the mental obsession has started, right? And that it's one is too many and 1,000 is never enough. I don't want a beer. I want to get drunk. I don't want to be able to sit at a bar and have a beer. That is part, like that idealization is part of what that looks like to me. But what I really want, okay, is I want to smoke pot. I want to use Xanax because I've never tried them before. I want to try all of these pills and I've never tried before. I've never had an Oxy. I've never had this. I've never had that. Hell, I walk down the aisle at Walmart of all the alcohol and I'm like, my God, back in the day, day, if we wanted mudslides, we had to buy 6 kinds of alcohol, you know? If we wanted to do this, hell, to make margaritas, buy it in a 6-pack a bottle, margaritas. We had to bring somebody, to have them bring their blender over. We had to get crushed ice. I mean, it was a mess, right? So now you can buy all that stuff in the aisle. It's like a kid in a candy store. That is still here, that mental obsession. So could I go into a bar and have a drink? Yeah, I probably could, and I could probably walk away, and I could probably fool myself that it's about the beer, but it's not about the beer, it's about the mental obsession. And once that first hit of alcohol hits my tongue, the mental obsession has started, and I'm screwed. I'm done, right? And that's why for 25 and a half years, we don't borrow time in the program, but let's see, 25, it's December, January, February, March, April, May to June to July, so 7 months. So 25 years and 7 months. For 25 years and 7 months, I've never had anything habit forming. I've never had any alcohol. I've never had anything over the counter that is habit forming. And the reason for that is because I don't know. I don't know that mental obsession isn't going to start like that, and my disease is going to be off to the races, because I do believe it's a disease, and then I'm going to lose everything. And the things I'm going to lose are the things that I am grateful for today. Okay? I'm not going to be able to sit down and film videos, so I'm going to lose YouTube. My husband's not going to stick around. I mean, I've told him stories of what it's like, but he has literally no idea, okay? He has no idea of what I am capable of. You know, my best friend and I, we talk about this a lot, right? Like, when you're sitting in front of somebody, and if you're an addict or an alcoholic and you're in recovery, you'll know what I'm talking about. And you're kind of getting into it with somebody, and you're like, don't push, like in your head you're thinking, don't push me, because you don't know what I'm capable of. Because that Peter from 25 and a half years ago is inside. And if I picked up again, it'd be like that. And I'm afraid of that. Like, I don't want that person to, you know, I don't want that old addict to come out, right? That, like, I just, you know, I don't want to be that person. And I've worked so hard to be a kinder, gentler version of myself, you know, that I think is true and authentic to who I am today. But that's that addict inside of me that's still there. So I'd lose my husband. And with my husband, I'd probably lose his family. I know my dad and my stepmom would be done like that. My cousin would be done with me. I'd lose my best friend because she's in recovery. You know, would she continue to be my friend? Sure, you know, but like, would we be hanging out in her back? I mean, I wouldn't be driving around the fountain pop with her, because she ain't gonna get near that, you know. For her own sobriety, she wouldn't. You know, would I be able to pay my bills? No. So would I lose my house? Sure. Where would I go? You know, it's like, it's a landslide like that from thinking that I can have one beer. That's the deception of the disease of addiction. And people say that it's not a disease. Okay, fine. I don't argue it with people, but I can sit and tell you that it has the same 5 signs and symptoms that any disease does, you know, designated by the American Medical Association. So it's the same. You can go look it up. This is a fact. So when people say it's not a disease. But let me tell you where I'm at with this, and I've said this a lot in my vlog. I don't really care if you believe it's a disease or you don't. Like, if you say to me, Peter, I don't believe that it's a disease, and I say, well, I do. Well, let's spend 5 hours fighting about it. Or could we spend those 5 hours saving somebody's life? That's what I really care about. I really care about saving somebody's life. And I think to share our stories, I brought my meditation books. I wasn't going to talk about all this today, but I'm really talking about gratitude is what I'm talking about, you know, and the power of gratitude. I think that, like, we could sit there and we could argue over whether it's a disease for 5.5 hours, or we could support somebody that's in early sobriety and help them get the need that they need, you know, and help them get the support that they need. And we could sit there, and gratitude is a huge part of that. And if it wasn't for gratitude in early sobriety, and if it wasn't for meditating on gratitude, and I don't mean just sitting there and being like, you know, like, okay, like all that, but I mean really like making a list, like 3rd grade, okay, crayon and paper, like that, you know, literally. There's a lot to be said for writing down, okay, but for making a list and saying house, husband, dogs, family, friends, you know what I mean, like all of that, food, car, because how would I drive? I couldn't get in a car. I probably would, and then, you know, I'd be getting DUIs. Like, I mean, you know, it's mind-boggling to think of ever going back to that again. And, you know, I was talking the other day, I think it was in my Q&A that I did on my Peter Monn channel, because somebody asked me like a question about like early recovery, and I said I would be more than willing to do a video talking about early recovery over there. And so I was in there, and I was thinking to myself about like what a huge power gratitude had over me when I was in early sobriety. You know, I can remember getting out of treatment and coming home, and I tell this story a lot in my vlog, But it makes me kind of sad sometimes because I think about what I put my dad through. You know, I put my dad through so much, and my dad had like my winter coat like professionally cleaned, and he'd have like professional cleaners come into my apartment. My apartment was disgusting, you know? And so I walk in, and it's like a different apartment. You know, I have all new bedding because I had like ashtrays just poured over my bedding, you know? Actually, the bedding, I think it was the bedding that my dad bought me. I still have the blanket here. And, you know, he had bought me like a new coffee maker because my coffee maker was like burned and all this kind of stuff. And I like opened the refrigerator, and he had bought like all these juices and like lunch meat and like all of this food because like he wanted me to eat like in macaroni and cheese and pasta salad and stuff, you know? And he had bought me all of these recovery movies I remember to watch like on the VCR. And, you know, I just thought like, you know, like, all my dad wants is for me to have a cup of coffee and go to bed, you know, like this whole idea of this like coffee maker for him. But my life was very small, and it was very simple back then. You know, when I got out of treatment, I was blessed that I didn't have to work for my first couple months. I didn't start working for 3.5, 4 months. I wasn't in school. And so I just focused on my recovery, and that is the power of halfway houses today. So if you have the ability to go to a halfway house, please do. But, you know, I was able to just focus on my recovery. And so I just went to 2 meetings, 3 meetings, 4 and 5 meetings a day. Worked with my sponsor. I wasn't a perfect by any means. One of the things that my sponsor told me is you're not going to get into a relationship. And I got into a relationship literally like 4 days after I got out of treatment, you know? So I didn't do everything perfect, but I did a lot that I was told to do. I did enough, you know, that I'm here today. I was scared. And it was like every small thing, you know, walking out of a meeting was a spiritual experience for me. I can remember walking out of meetings, you know, like out of some smoky church basement, because we smoked in meetings back then, you know, where I had actually like a cup of coffee, and I'm standing out in the parking lot with like the styrofoam cup, you know, and smoking a cigarette and talking to people that I just met, you know, and I had hope for the first time in my life that my life could be different, you know, that I could be happy. And I can remember when I was in treatment, and I had read the last paragraph of the basic text that says, you know, about trudging the road of happy destiny, and I wanted that. Like, I didn't know what that was. I didn't know what happy destiny was. And so, like, for the first time in my life, I was happy, and it was because I had a turkey sandwich at home for dinner before I left to go to a meeting, and then I would have a cup of coffee that tasted just so good, you know, and like a really great cigarette with standing outside talking to friends. And, or, you know, I didn't have any money at the time because my dad wouldn't give me any cash, except for like, he'd give me like just enough to like, he bought me cartons of cigarettes. My dad's so anti-smoking. And so he would buy me a carton of cigarettes, and then like enough cash to put like, you know, $1 or something like in the donation thing. But I never had money. So like people would take me to Perkins and Denny's, and they would buy me cheeseburgers, you know, and I'm so thankful for that. And it's like the power of the cheeseburger. I think about that, you know, the power of a cup of coffee that like today, like if I go into a meeting, you know, it's like having a cup of coffee in a styrofoam cup is hope to me. It means so much more. You see a newcomer come into a meeting, and that cup of coffee is like a real cup of coffee, like that I don't have to pay for, you know, it's like, it's the same thing. And, you know, and today I have the ability that when I meet a newcomer and we all go out to dinner or something, and I can pick up their check, and if I'm the first one to get it, you know, and I can pass on what was so freely given to me. And people say, oh, it's just a cheeseburger, but it's so not. Like, it's so not. Like when you're hungry and you want a cheeseburger so bad, but you don't have $5 in your pocket, like it means a lot. And people did that for me, and people gave me rides. And so it was so much more than just getting sober. It was hope. You know, I had so much hope in early sobriety, and I carry that in today. And I think sitting in silence and remembering those days is really, really important. You know, it's really important to remember what that first cup of coffee tasted like. I know that sounds corny maybe, and it sounds cheesy, but it was like really simple. Like it really kind of encapsulated my life. Like that's what I wanted, you know? I wanted to nest, and I made my bed every day because my sponsor said, you're going to make your bed every day, you know? And he would come over and check sometimes. And, you know, like I nested, like my apartment was clean. I vacuumed, I, you know, Windexed the kitchen, you know? It was like, it was clean. It was nice, you know? And I cared about those things. And I got up every day and made a pot of coffee because a cup of coffee was important to me. And, I read, and I took care of myself, and I took showers and washed my hair, and, you know, and tried to look nice and presentable. And I was a new person. I was cleaned, and I was refreshed. Just to look back on that, and I never want to forget that, because the second that I forget all of that, and the second that I think that I can walk into a bar and I can have a beer, just one beer or one drink, is when the deception of the disease starts settling in my mind, and I forget that everything that I have been so freely given, everything that I should be grateful for today, all of those things I've listed and 100,000 things more, I will lose that quick if I forget where I came from. So anyway, that wasn't anything that I thought I was going to talk about today, but let me know what you think about any of that in the comment section below if you'd like to hear more stories about my recovery. Anyway, I love you guys, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye.